You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast. We talk with adventurers from around the globe to give you the inspiration you need to get started in the outdoors or keep moving if you're already there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. This is Caleb. Whenever I'm doing these revisited episodes, I try to bring unusual and unique episodes from the ASP backlog, and this one definitely fits the bill. In this one, Mason interviews Sophie Matterson. Sophie, after needing a break from her career in film and TV, decided to take on a new adventure in her life by deciding to pick up the interesting vocation of camel milking. And through that experience, she fell in love with the animals and never returned back to her old career. And this episode specifically is about Sophie's crazy idea to cross Australia on foot while being accompanied by 5 wild camels. Very interesting episode. I hope you enjoy it. Here's Mason.
All right, folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. This is this is an interesting one right here. We get a lot of cyclists, a lot of hikers, and folks just doing random things. But this is out there for us. It's I don't even know what you call it, Sophie, camel trekking or something. But anyway, Sophie Matterson, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mason. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So is this a thing, walking with camels, or are you kind of out on your own on this one?
Well, I mean, I guess it's a thing for some people. It's not super common, but I'm out on my own. So it's me and 5 camels, and we're walking across Australia at the moment.
Folks are gonna
as
hear
you do.
Yeah, as you do, right? Folks are gonna hear my disbelief when I do the intro, but I wanted to go all the way back, if you don't mind. I'm judging here, but it sounds like you're from Australia.
Yes, I am. Yep.
So where did you grow up, and what kind of kid were you? Were you real adventurous, or is this totally strange for you?
Well, camels actually sort of came quite out of left field for me. I traveled a lot as a kid. I was actually born in Hong Kong, and we moved around a lot when I was little. But mainly, through high school, through primary school and high school, grew up in Australia. I'm from Brisbane. I guess Brisbane is where I'd call home, Brisbane in Queensland. And, I was actually working in film and TV and looking to I was kind of sort of wanting to take a little bit of a break, and I wanted my job, I guess, to be a little bit more outdoors. And I ended up stumbling upon people that were camel milking. They were milking camels for the milk. And it was a friend's auntie who had this camel dairy. And so I bugged her. I said, "Oh, can I go and meet the camels?" And then I just fell in love with them. And so it started from this bizarre path of milking camels. But was I adventurous as a kid? Not particularly. Like, we never went camping or anything particularly, actually, when I was growing up. I guess I always had the travel bug. I did a lot of traveling when I was younger, and both my parents are big travelers as well.
You mentioned a lot there. So you were in TV and had a career, and you were unhappy with it. What kind of, I don't know, gave you the confidence, or was it easy to walk away from, or was it really a taxing decision?
No, well, to be honest, it just sort of started as I thought I'd just take a break from it, and I thought maybe I'd do something totally different for 6 months, and that's all it would be, and then I would go back to doing film and TV. And yes, like I said, I stumbled across this camel dairy, and I started milking camels kind of on the weekends. And at one point I was doing half film and TV and half milking camels. Was
that a paid job, the milking of the camels?
Yeah, it was. It was just a bizarre combination of 2 jobs, I guess. Going to film shoots during the week, and then milking the camels on the weekend. It was quite strange, but yeah. And then the camels just started taking over more and more, and yeah. So it wasn't planned or anything, and like I said, I thought it might just be sort of a little 6-month break, and then I'd go back to film and TV, and I just kept going. I got too busy to do film and TV, and I worked at milking camels full time. And then I had a trip planned overseas, and so while I was overseas, I thought, oh, I'm going to go and see what other people are doing with camels overseas. So I actually ended up on your side of the world. I ended up at a dairy in Michigan, of all places, milking camels with a family of Mennonites over in Michigan, which was an incredibly interesting experience. A lovely family, lovely area, bizarre seeing camels, I guess, in the green pastures of Michigan in the US. And so then I went down to Texas. I met a guy who had camels down there. And then from there over to India, and spent a bit of time with the nomads and their camels over there. And then came back to Australia and I was really interested in pursuing more camel trekking. So I worked for a company down in South Australia who took tourists out on 9-day treks out into an area called the Flinders Ranges, and fell in love with that. And then moved to Uluru, which is the big, beautiful, sacred rock in the middle of Australia. And that's sort of where I started preparing for my trip. So it's been about 4 years that I've been hanging out with camels now. And like I said, it was only meant to be a little 6-month break from film and TV. And 4 years later, I was still chasing camels all around the world.
You got to be careful. Catch that camel fever,
That's right.
So you're in Michigan. I'm sorry. I mean, nothing against folks in Michigan, but there's a lot, I don't know, maybe more interesting parts of the country. Hopefully you were able to see more of the U.S. There's some great places. Michigan, it's great. It's fine. But especially doing what you're doing, I didn't realize there were camels there, but
no one does.
Wow.
No one does. I loved the beautiful red barns, though. I was obsessed with those.
Yeah. And the Mennonites are so interesting. Mennonites and the Amish, very interesting culture.
Very.
I didn't realize they work with camels. Maybe I'm just a dumb American, but I didn't realize you could get so much milk from camels.
Yeah, less than a cow, but the milk is very popular in the sense that a lot of people use it for gut and bowel disorders. Some people will use it actually with autism. So it has a bit of a sort of following in that market. And they're also making it into skincare products now, so similar to how you would find goat's milk soap and that kind of thing.
Very, very fascinating. You learn something new every day. Well, let me ask you this. You talked about, I think a lot of folks can relate wanting a change, falling in love with something, a hobby, or not a hobby, a passion, like a new direction in life. Why camels for you? What was it about them?
Yeah, I had grown up riding horses, so I sort of knew large animals, and I was interested in large animals, and they play a huge role in Australia's history over here. So I found that part of it fascinating as well. We actually have a huge population of what we call feral or wild camels in the outback here. So it's something from anywhere between 250,000 to over 1 million wild camels roaming around the outback.
Wow.
And a lot of even Australians don't realise that. Because most of our population is on the coastline and not that many people travel to the outback. So I'd started to learn about that, and I thought that was fascinating in itself, as they were brought over here for basically exploration of the outback and setting up, developing outback Australia. So they had a very, very important role in our history over here. And then once the cars started coming in and trucks started coming in, there was no more need for the camels, and so the men that ran them, they let them go, and from there they bred up in the wild. So now we actually have the only population of wild one-hump camels in the world. In every other country, they're domesticated. So that was interesting. Like being able to work with a wild animal is incredibly special. And they're fascinating in the way that they're so well adapted to the desert. All of their whole physiology and makeup is so perfectly adapted to the desert. and most of our country here, you know, if you're gonna cross Australia, most of our country is made up of desert. So they're the perfect vehicle for that. Perfect vehicle for exploration, I think. Maybe a little slow.
Maybe a little slow. So that's what makes me wonder why camels versus what we see and hear a lot on the show is cycling. Cycling across Australia is a big one, and you obviously had a passion for camels at this point. What led to the idea to walk across Australia? Did that just seem like the ultimate goal, the ultimate, I don't know, challenge?
Yeah, it's sort of, I guess there was, it's really hard to sort of give one particular reason why. And probably a lot of your other guests on the show will be able to relate. It's, you get so taken up by an idea, it happens, I don't know, somehow the seed gets planted, and then, you spend years of preparing, and then by the time you get to set off, you're like, why did I even decide on this? It seems like so long ago that I can't even remember where the idea came from. But partly I guess it was I wanted to see more of Australia, and I wanted to see the outback and visit some of our most remote regions, and like I said, the camel was just the perfect sort of vehicle for that. I guess for me, I was never particularly a cyclist. If you're going to do a walk, you have to tow a cart, and I thought, how good would this be? I've got animals to cart my equipment. I don't have to carry anything. But I mean, obviously, there's a lot more work in having 5 animals with you as well. But I think part of it as well was the whole challenge of, so my 5 camels, they came from the wild. So sort of in some ways for me, the adventure all started when I took those camels from the wild and I trained them myself. So that was all sort of part of the challenge of it, I guess.
What does that entail, training a camel? Because I know horses are, you can tame horses. There's there's probably 50,000 wild horses in the U.S., I think.
Yeah.
And that, I know that's a thing to break them.
Yeah, well, camels, similar thing to horses. Yeah, you have to break them in, and they're incredibly smart animals, very, very smart. So they learn things very quickly. It often revolves around a lot of repetition. So saddling them up every day, unsaddling them every day, and in some ways the trip itself has all been part of the training of my camels, because they, as we walk and as we cross Australia, they're seeing new things and new landscapes, or we might come across a new what seems like a scary thing for them. So slowly it's just exposure to that, it was good fun training them, training to ride on them, training them to sit down. You have to train them to what we call hush, which means to sit down. Because camels are so tall, you have to sit them down in order to load all the gear on their backs, and then stand them up with all of that gear. So that all had to be trained, teaching them to have pack bags on their back and all of that.
Why 5 camels? Why not 1 or 2 or 10? What made you land on that number? And, what I'm saying?
To be honest, it's too many, probably. Or it's more than what I need, I would say. I don't know. In my head, originally, I sort of thought the trip, I thought that I might have people maybe sort of jump on, jump off for sections, and so I thought that having 5 would enable me to have a few extra, to carry extra pack bags. But in the end, it worked out well, because all of my camels are slightly younger, and so and also because it's like humans going into training, I guess. For us, to do a big walk or whatever, you need to be trained up and used to carrying pack bags and stuff, and mine weren't used to carrying any of that gear. So I was kind of able, with 5, I was able to distribute it a little bit more, so they weren't carrying a super huge load. Whereas, if I just had 3, they would have been loaded up a lot more heavily.
Have you ever gone through all the hassles of getting on the plane, security, luggage, long waits at the airport, all that kind of stuff? And then when you finally arrive at your destination, not only are you worn out, but you also might feel a little bit disconnected. I know that I do when I hopscotch around the planet on a plane. That's one of the reasons why I love the great American road trips, where you get to drive from one place to another and connect all of those dots. You get to experience the changes in the terrain and the weather and the people and the communities. This is one reason that I am excited to present to you our new sponsor, Outdoorsy. Outdoorsy offers a different way to travel. With Outdoorsy, you can rent an RV or a camper and turn the drive into part of the vacation on your schedule with your people and with way more flexibility. Listen, most trips focus on getting somewhere. Outdoorsy is about the part in between. With Outdoorsy, you can rent an RV or a camper and travel on your own terms. No TSA lines, no strict schedules, no rushing through airports. And for extra convenience, Outdoorsy even offers RV delivery and setup in many locations, so you can enjoy the experience without having to worry about the logistics. Outdoorsy connects travelers with trusted RV owners across the country, making it easy to find a rig that fits your style and budget, and I might add, that also fits with the people and the pets that you want to take with you. So when you're ready for a trip that actually feels like a break, head to Outdoorsy.com. Outdoorsy is currently running a special promotion for listeners. Use the promo code ASP at checkout to take advantage of this limited time offer. That's Outdoorsy.com, promo code ASP.
So 5 camels, you're outnumbered 5-1. Is there any, is it difficult to wrangle that many large animals at a time? I would feel intimidated with one, honestly, with one horse or something similar like a camel. 5, you've got a crew to maintain.
Yeah, absolutely.
What does that look like? What's the practicality of kind of the logistics of doing that?
It's definitely a crew. I think the main thing is you sort of have to work out their personalities. So just like any animal, they all have their own very unique personalities. So some will make great leaders, some will be better followers. So, as I was training them, I started to pick who was going to be my lead camel. So in my little string of 5, they all have their position in that string. So they're always in the same order. And so that gives them, I guess, a sense of security and so it's kind of, you've got to take a little bit of time to work that out. But yeah, for sure, it's you put a lot of trust into your lead camel because he's the one basically towing the rest of the gang behind. So you have to be able to have control over him or to be able to have a good working relationship with him, I guess, because he sort of really controls the rest of the 4 behind him as well. So, but like I said, they're just so smart. So, and it took me probably about a year to train them before we set off. And so you start to develop that relationship. He knows my lead camel is Jude. And he knows, lots of words. Like he knows steady, he knows stand. They pick up very much on your mood as well. So, there'd be times where I don't feel very confident because it's the first time I've, walked in this area or walked in this, remote location. But you sort of have to sort of fake it almost. You have to be a strong leader for them because they will pick up on your energy. And if you're nervous, then it'll make them nervous as well.
My goodness, so interesting. What did you look for in the camels when you were picking them out? Is there any sort of qualities you're looking for, or are most camels going to fare well with this type of thing?
You can probably get most camels will probably do it. Like I said, not every camel will make a leader. So I was lucky that I found a really, really great lead camel. But otherwise, no. I mean, it's a bit of a gamble, really, because when I took them from the wild, it was, all you're looking at that point is whether they're a nice, whether they've got nice conformation, I guess, whether they look like a strong camel, and whether they look like they can carry a load, and then you only really get to know what they're going to be like to train, as you get further down the road. Then,
so you're kind of just you got to pick it, pick the crew. Say this is our team. We're gonna go make it happen. We're gonna work it out. We're gonna get frustrated.
That's right. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, they've like I said, they very much have their own personalities. I have a little camel Clayton, and a lot of people always ask. One of the major questions people ask is, do camels spit? Which they actually don't spit. They vomit. So if camels are very unhappy,
even better,
they will puke up their guts onto you. And I had a little camel Clayton. Yeah, it's taken a long time for us to get to an understanding between one another. He has covered me in a fair bit of regurgitated plant matter many a time, which I tell you what does not smell good. But he's a very, very hard little worker. He just is never probably going to be a cuddly camel. He just does not like affection particularly, but an incredibly hard worker. And so it's just working out, whereas I have another camel, Charlie, who adores being patted and cuddled and loves kids. And so they're very, very different, and you just got to respect them for who they are, I think. If you treat them well, they will treat you well. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things of my trip is it is round the clock camel care. So, they are your lifeline out there, and you have to look after them so well because they're doing all the work, and they're all you've got out there.
So speaking of that, what do they need? Because, I think we all know, or we at least it sounds like it has the potential to be folklore that camels don't need to drink that often. How true is that, and how often do they need water, and what other kinds of things do they need?
Yeah, well, the water one is really, really tricky. It's an equation that I've almost never been able to work out, because it all depends on how hard they're working, what the temperature is, what the feed's like. Camels get a lot of water from what they're eating. So that was probably one of the biggest struggles I had, as well, is that actually when I crossed WA, Western Australia, is that it was a lot of the area was in pretty severe drought, which camels actually, they do a lot better than a lot of other animals out there in a dry season, but still they require a lot of feed and to keep them going, and also the drier it is, the less moisture content they're getting from those plants, and the more that they need to drink. So I was carrying 12 jerry cans on me, and most of that was for the stretches in the desert where I would need to actually give my camels a drink. Having said that, I've heard of, station owners have told me of camels that have gone sort of 6 months without a drink of water, just because they're eating amazing, succulent feed. So it's pretty incredible, 6 months without a drop of water.
6 months. Unbelievable.
Pretty nuts. Whereas you think a cow, they have to drink, every day. Horses, definitely, I think you might be able to push them. I'm not 100% sure on this, but 2, maybe 3 days max. But my camels, often I did a stretch where I didn't give them a drink for 2 weeks.
Wow.
So yeah, they start to get, it's a little bit depressing sometimes when you're out there, though, because they get thirsty. They can do it, but they think that they need a drink of water, and so every time you have to fill up your water bottle, you're kind of doing that secretly. Like, they'll be off grazing, and you've got to secretly fill up your water bottle back at camp and hope that they don't hear the sound of the water, or hope that they don't smell the water, because otherwise they're right over there up in your face. So yeah, you're always hiding about, trying to fill up water bottles and have a drink on your own.
I'm just blown away by this whole experience. You've got these massive animals that have these super natural powers almost, and you're walking across one of the largest continents in the world, and you're just it's like something out of a sci-fi movie. It's incredible. Do they feel like your protectors? They're like walls around you. Do they feel like that?
Yeah, absolutely, actually. Yeah, they do. I think it would be a really different experience without them. Like you said, there's a lot of people that cycle across Australia. And for me, I almost can't even imagine that because I think for me, the camels really hold off a certain amount of loneliness. When you have them, you have another sort of, I don't know, another spirit out there.
It's a beating heart.
Yeah. So you become very, very attached to them. And one of my favorite things is when I sleep at night, I sleep, really only a couple of meters away from them. Partly because they're tethered to trees. So just in case they get tangled up in the ropes, I need to be able to hear, or if a wild camel comes into our camp, I need to be able to deal with that situation. But I love, my favorite thing is lying, falling asleep with the sound of them chewing their cud. I love that.
So what are you doing about that now? Do you have that playing in the background when you go to sleep? Not on the trip right now.
I should have recorded that so I could go to sound.
I don't think that's an option on most of the little machines.
That's right. No, I don't think it's up there with the rainfall or air conditioning. White noise.
Wow, that's hilarious. Yeah, that's you'll need that. So I mean, there's just a million questions I want to ask, and I know it might sound basic, but we've just never talked to someone doing this. You're not on paved roads for the most part. It looks like it's mostly dirt tracks, dirt roads through the outback.
Yeah, all dirt roads. So I don't think I crossed any paved road I've traveled about 2,300 kilometers, I think, roughly so far. So I actually was looking this up because I suddenly thought you guys work in miles. I think that's about 1,400 miles roughly. Am I right there?
2,300 kilometers. Actually, let me look it up. We have so many folks from all over the world on this show that our listeners are used to it. Yeah, it looks like about 1,400 miles. Good
there
gracious.
You go, yeah.
So, when you overlay Australia and the U.S., it's about the same distance, or it's about the same size. And so this is very similar for American listeners to literally walking coast to coast across America with a tenth of the population. Unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's and especially the area that I've just crossed, Western Australia, is very, very remote. I don't know what their population is, but it's tiny. I was thinking today, the largest town I went through was I think about 800 residents. That's the largest township I went through. Otherwise, I pretty much did not go through a single other town. There was a stretch that when I went into the Great Victoria Desert, which is Australia's largest desert and I think the 7th largest in the world. It's a stretch of 1,300 kilometers, so say roughly 800 miles, I think that is. And all there is one little roadhouse, or like a fuel bowser in the middle, that's sort of manned by 2 guys out there. That's it. There's no one else out there. It's a 4-wheel drive track that I was following, but actually, well, as well because of COVID, no one was. A lot of the time that I was walking, no one was traveling. That road that I went along in the Great Victoria Desert, it was actually shut. I was the only one. You have to get permits to go across that road because a lot of the land that you're traveling across is Aboriginal land, and no one else was able to get permits because they weren't allowing people onto Aboriginal land because they didn't want to spread the disease. But because I was taking so long to get on there, I would have gone through my own amount of quarantine. Basically, I was sort of doing my own extreme form of social distancing. So I was the only one traveling down that road, which was actually an incredibly special experience. I sort of got to have that desert track to myself.
I mean, I know I keep saying it, but this is so unbelievable of an adventure, so incredible. Something that we hear a lot, because we do have a lot of Americans on the show who are exploring America, and they are, like myself, born and raised here. But when you see it from the seat of a bicycle or on your own 2 feet, going to these reaches of the country, your home country that you've never perceived even existed, have you had that experience with Australia?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the reasons why I wanted to go into the Great Victoria Desert is I felt like I had not a single other person I knew from Australia even knew of where that desert was. This huge, huge area of land,
Wow.
and no one even knew where it was in Australia. So I guess that really intrigued me, and we're very, very lucky in Australia, I think, to have such huge areas of remote wilderness. I mean, it's really quite humbling to stand on the crest of a hill or on the crest of a sand dune and look out, and you can see 360 degrees and there is not a single sign of human inhabitants. And that happened, it wasn't like I found one spot like that. That happened many, many a time on my trip. So you really feel like a tiny speck out there in this wilderness. And I think, and you'll probably, I'm sure a lot of your listeners will agree with me, is that the nice thing about traveling, rather than traveling in a car where you're sort of shielded, whizzing through in this bubble, is when you travel slowly by bike or, walking or by camel like I did, which is probably even slower than your regular hike. We only travel at about 3K an hour.
Saunter. It's a saunter.
Yeah, that's right. We saunter across the desert. So we really, you really just get to take in the small changes, and you get to be a part of that environment. You're not shielded from anything. You have to deal with the weather, the changes in weather, the the sandstorms, the dust storms, the flies, the beautiful fresh, crisp mornings and beautiful sunrises and sunsets out in the desert, and you get to really see the detail in that I just don't think you pick up when you whiz through in a car.
Absolutely not. That's a sensation that we hear described a lot, and one you can't really explain until you go out and do it yourself. Has it, I mean, just, it's so much desert. It's almost primarily desert what you're crossing. Does it get monotonous to you, or are you enjoying kind of the consistency of it?
Well, I think that's the thing, is that a lot of people that do drive in these places will say, oh, it's all the same, because I don't think you see those subtle changes. Whereas for me, I mean, there was a few areas where I sort of thought, oh God, here we go, another mulga forest, which is sort of like a similar type of, scrubby tree out there. But I felt like I really started to appreciate all the differences in vegetation. So no, I sort of didn't find it boring or monotonous. Because there is so much variety out there, and the landscape can change very, very quickly. You can go from, even when we were out in the desert, there was huge areas where it had been burnt by a wildfire back in 2018, I think it was. So huge areas of just sort of very sort of desolate looking dunes. And then you'd walk over another dune and then it would be totally different. I mean, a lot of people think about the desert as they think about the Sahara. They think about bare dunes that you're crossing. Australian deserts are not like that at all. They are actually incredibly vegetated. We have one of the oldest land masses in the world, and so our dunes are quite stable because there's been a lot of time for that vegetation to grow. There's quite a lot of bird life, a lot of reptile life in the desert. So there's actually a huge amount of life out there. And then I got a big change in weather too, and I had, right at the end of my trip, I got coming into sort of at the edge of the desert, we had a lot of rain, and so it was magical. It was something I'd always wanted to see, and I finally got to see it. Was the desert come to life after rain. And literally the day after rain, you see these flowers called parakelia popping up through the sand, and it's just like, it's instantaneous, the transformation. And yeah, it became, there was a sea of wildflowers out there. Birds started to migrate in. It was really, really special.
I can only imagine, honestly, just the payoff of the rain and the life it brung, and you were in tune with the landscape to sense those subtle changes, and that it takes that. I've gone places on a trip that took a lot of effort to get there, and it was so much more vivid, so much more impactful. And then I'll go back and visit, with my wife, and we'll drive there, and it doesn't feel the same anymore, because it wasn't very hard to get there. And
absolutely,
it's so bizarre. Like, the places aren't as magical, which is sad, but it's also, it's there. You're just not looking at it that way. Your saturation of your eyes are turned down. It's not as vibrant. It's not as, I don't know. So I imagine that was incredible.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, I always think, you can have the worst, you can make a terrible cup of tea in the most dirty cup out there, but when you're out there and you've done 100 days walking, it tastes like the best cup of tea you've ever had. And everything is like that. You appreciate that much more because you've worked for it.
There's some recipes I've come up with out there that I love, and then I get back home and try it, and I'm like, how in the world did I ever think this tasted
I think this is good. I absolutely know what you mean.
So speaking of that, what are you carrying for food, and how often? You're only going through, towns of 800 at the most. Where are you getting your food? How often, and what is it?
Well, it was a big logistical I had to do a lot of organizing beforehand. So I carry about a month's worth of food on one of my camels, and I basically organized about 5 months worth of food before I set off out there. So I trucked the camels. I actually bought a camel truck, loaded the camels on at Uluru in the centre of Australia, and drove to the coast of Western Australia with the camels on board. And I had all my food boxes packed up in the truck, and as we went along, I managed to drop them at a few places. There was a couple that sort of had to, one that went out to a more remote area in the desert. Everyone's so helpful in the outback. Everyone is willing to pitch in and help. So one of those food boxes, it got run out by the guy who tops up the fuel out at that one remote roadhouse in the middle of the desert. He took my food boxes out there on a fuel run. So they sat out there for several months before I'd even got to them. So most of the stuff obviously is long life. I tried to stick away from cans. You can eat a little bit better, I think, than, if you're going on a hiking trip, because you can carry a bit more weight, things you're not carrying it on your own back. But I try and stick away from cans because that does make it heavy for the camels. So a lot of rice, a lot of lentils, a lot of stodgy things, pastas. I actually did what the old explorers used to do. I salted some beef. So you basically get a big hunk of meat and you just pour salt all over it, and then you just dry it out that way. Took me a while to work out how to cook that the best way, because it seems to not matter how many times you wash it, it's still insanely salty. But that's what the old explorers used to survive off in Australia. They would pretty much eat salt beef, damper, and tea. damper being sort of a type of bread that we do here just on the fire. So no wonder they ended up with scurvy. I don't think I was.
Right.
Yeah, I was eating. I was eating a little bit better than that. But I was craving just fresh food and salad by the end.
Golly. So are you? You're not riding these, are you? Or are you sometimes riding the camels?
No, I ended up walking the whole way. My lead camel, Jude, I trained him to ride, and look, we're pretty good at it. It was one of the last things that I trained him to do. So our ability to go in a straight line is great. Our ability to turn left and right, not so good. But in the end, I decided to walk, mainly because partly to make it easier on him. It's not like you're walking very fast, so it's not particularly strenuous walking. It meant that he could carry more pack bags if I wasn't riding, and also partly a safety thing. Like you were saying, it's having 5 large animals, and you're not just riding one animal, you're really riding 5. You've got the others in tow. So I had a pretty scary experience, actually, where my camels took off on me early on in the trip.
Oh gosh.
So after that, and I wasn't riding then, thank God, but I remember thinking, yeah, it probably would have been a whole lot worse if I was riding. Yeah.
So they just took off running.
Yeah. So
you don't have to tell the story if you don't want to.
Oh no! I can tell it. It was a good learning curve, that's for sure. It was sort of before we'd got to the desert stretches, so we were on station country, and when I say station country, I mean like farms, but stations in Australia are huge, vast areas, basically. You might as well be in the middle of nowhere. And I'd actually, that day, I wasn't even following a dirt track or anything. I'd gone cross country because I'd gone 5K in the wrong direction at the beginning of that morning. And I thought, oh, okay, right, that's annoying, but oh well, I'll cut cross country. We'll be right. So I was leading the 5 along, and totally oblivious. I think I was probably singing along at the time, enjoying the morning. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Jude saw a dark shape in the bushes. It was actually just a cow, of all things. So nothing scary, but for some reason he just totally freaked. So I was holding on to his rope at the time. He pulled away from me. It pulled me flat on my face, and they're all, roped to one another. So he shied and pulled off, and it toppled all of the other camels over. So my camel Mac went down with all the jerry cans on him. Things started to fall off. My bedding, what we call a swag, which is kind of like a bedroll, was hanging half the way off Jude. And then they sort of all recovered themselves, got up, and then just took off. And I always try and not run after my camels, because it's only going to spook them more if you're sort of crazy human running after them. But there was nothing I could do. I had to run after them. There was I had to go catch them. So I was running, and in the middle of nowhere. And as I started to run, I've realised I'd been using my phone to navigate. That had fallen out of my hand when the rope was pulled out of my hand. So as I started to run, I realised I didn't have any navigation on me. I didn't have my EPIRB on me. I didn't have my sat phone on me. I didn't have any water on me. Everything was packed in the saddlebags, and they're all taking off into the distance with all of my safety equipment on their backs. So I'm running after them. I started to lose sight of them at one point. I had to keep stopping and listening to the sound of the jerry cans flapping about on the back camel, because they're all sort of spooking one another. As the lead camel, he hears the sound of the back camel with all the gear thumping around, and then that spooks them more, and he runs more, and then they're all running more, and they get into that herd mentality. And yeah, it's just a vicious cycle, exactly. And I caught up to them at one point, and all I had on me was my little pocket knife. And so I got my pocket knife out, and I thought I'll cut the last 2 camels off, because at least then I'll have some of them. and then the others might stop. And as I sort of reached out with that knife, they took off again, and Clayton bowled me over and I was on my face again, and then I'm running after them again, and became totally disorientated, realized I had no idea where I was, because you're focused on them, and all the bush can look exactly the same. And thank God I managed to. The only reason I actually caught up with them was because Jude spun round a bush, and he sort of spiraled in, and the string spiraled in on itself, so he couldn't escape because of the other camels. And so I managed to catch up to him, grab the rope, and oh my gosh, it was one of the most scary experiences of my life. I just realized that what would have happened if I hadn't caught them. And I was just in such a frenzy when I got to them. And it was funny, actually. I remembered reading this survivalist book, and they say, I think it was obviously an Australian one, because they said when you're lost in the bush, one of the first things you should do is boil the billy. So a billy is like, a teapot, basically. And so it was saying, you'll never make a good rational decision for your safety when you're in a state of fear and panic. So boil the billy, have a cup of tea, and just take stock. So I actually did that. So I tied Jude to a tree, and I was in tears, I was in hysterics and stuff. And I thought, I'm just going to make a cup of tea. And it was probably the best thing I did, because it meant I had to calm down. And then it took sort of once I'd done that and sort of regained a bit of composure, it took over an hour. I had to retrace their footprints, and it took us over an hour to get back to where it had all happened, and all the gear had started falling off, so I could recover my phone and everything. So big learning curve. After that I changed a lot of things. I always made sure I carried water on me. I had always my sat phone on me, my EPIRB on me, just in case that was to ever happen again. So
Was there any lesson you learned in that about dealing with those kinds of situations, or dealing with just chaos?
Yeah, I think even from working with camels, not even necessarily that particular situation, I've kind of developed a bit of a mentality of when things go wrong, do nothing, or kind of like, don't panic. Like I said, like the camels pick up a lot on your energy. That particular situation, I guess my main things that I learned was I needed to have all of that safety equipment on me, just in case that was to ever happen again. It's so easy to become complacent, especially with the animals, because you're like, oh, they're doing really well and everyone's really chilled, and all can take one tiny little thing, and it'll be on the day that you least expect it. You think that they're so super relaxed, and then some tiny sound, something in the bushes will scare them, and you're with a fight or flight, or you're with a flight animal, so they just have that herd instinct, and they just want to run from a predator. And so that was the main thing I learned from that one. But in general, working with camels, I really struggled on my trip, because my camels were all new, and so they used to spook at this, that, and everything else. A water tank, a 44-gallon drum in the bushes, some little pile of rubbish or something like that. It was like the scariest thing in the world. And you're walking along, and you have all of your 5 camels like sort of running up behind you, and you feel at first when you're training them, you feel like they're just going to run over the top of you, and then you sort of start to realize that they won't do that. So I developed this ability to just be able to, they would spook at something and they would run up from behind, or buck, and things would flap all over the place, and I would just literally not even turn my head to look at them. I would just keep walking, and I would just totally ignore that behavior. And I found with them, like, there's just no point in panicking. You have to sort of breathe and take it back down to basics. No one's injured, no one's dying. We're all okay. You just keep moving forward.
Some life lessons right there. Some life lessons. Just keep moving forward. grin and bear it, and just
That's
don't
right.
panic. Don't panic. I'm sure.
Don't panic.
I'm sure that kept a lot of things from going wrong later on. Speaking of safety and being spooked and all that, how is it traveling, as the only human of the pack, but also in, coupling with that, what has the interactions been with other humans and locals? How have those gone?
Actually, amazing. So amazing. I've met just the absolute best people out there. I haven't had a single station say no, I can't walk across their land. Everyone has said yes straight away. Everyone's, because I contacted all of these farms before I left, and to ask permission to walk across their land, and to ask them whereabouts the water points were and so on, and all of them have been above and beyond helpful. They were all like, you can come and stay if you need a shower, or if you want to put your camels in our cattle yards for a night. So yes, I had some amazing interactions with
Wow.
station owners, and Aboriginal communities out in the desert. I had a lovely community, Oak Valley community, that there was a stretch that I just would not have been able to make it without someone dropping water to me. It was something like close to 700 kilometers without any water, and I just thought it was too much to push my camels to do. And so they had agreed to bring water out to me, and their community wasn't even anywhere nearby. Like it was a 2-hour drive for them to get to me. So a 4-hour round trip on rough roads, towing a trailer with 1,000 liters of water. So they were incredible, and they ended up doing not just one water drop, they ended up doing 4 water drops for me. And it was just lovely too. It was lovely to be surrounded by these communities out in the desert as well. They have a really strong sense of culture. English is not their first language, so they're all speaking in Pidginjara is what they speak out there. And so it's sort of almost strange, because it's like you feel like you've sort of landed in a different country, and then you realize that actually this is the language of this land. And they have a very strong connection to that land. And so I had a beautiful experience with them. The ladies were all super lovely. They really so it's a group called the Anangu people, and they really take it personally if they feel like when you're walking across their land, because they're the custodians of that land, your safety is their responsibility. So they really take it personally if something was to happen to you. So they said to me, please just call us on the sat phone. If there's anything that you feel worried about, please, safety first. We don't want anything to happen to you out there. So they were awesome. And the ladies actually brought me they set up some tarps so I could have a shower out in the middle of the desert, and they brought up shampoos and conditioners and a whole little gift pack for me, because I'd been sort of 3 months on the road basically at that point without a shower. So that was awesome. And then actually, after the camels had taken off on me, I met someone who was so very helpful for me before I hit the desert. I ended up staying at a station, and there was a guy caretaking the station, and he was ex-military. He was actually an ex-sniper, and he helped me because I knew I was heading into the desert, and because, like I said, there's a lot of wild camels out there. I actually had to carry guns on my trip because it can be a real problem with feral bull camels are in season, and they will come in and they will either try and mate or fight with your camels. And that can be a big problem, because my camels are all loaded up with gear and they're restrained. They've got ropes on, and these bulls can be really aggressive, big teeth on them. They can do a lot of damage fighting. And so I had to carry rifles on me to shoot them if I had to. And I felt, before going into this desert stretch, I felt totally unprepared. I don't think I even had the rifle sighted properly. I didn't really know what I was doing. And so I stopped at this station, and this guy basically just taught me everything from the ground up. He helped me sight the rifles. He took me out shooting. He taught me about breathing. He taught me about, where to shoot the camel and how to deal with it and how to check if they were dead. And then not only that, he went through all of my pack gear, because Army people are so, they've had to march with 40K packs on their backs. They know all about placement of gear and, how to make things easily accessible, how to balance loads and that kind of stuff. So he basically did all of that with my camels and rearranged all the equipment on them. So after staying with him, I just went into the desert feeling so much more prepared.
So it seems like the common theme we hear on this show is that most people are good. It has also been true for your adventure.
Absolutely, yeah. There has seriously not been a single time that I felt unsafe with, any humanity out there. There's been no one that's been weird, creepy, or anything. Everyone has just been above and beyond helpful. You think you're not going to see anyone in weeks, and then all of a sudden it's crazy. In these most remote areas, someone sort of pops out doing, I don't know, a motorbike trip or, something, and then all of a sudden you've got, a bunch of people offering you a beer around the campfire. It's like, oh, I wasn't expecting this. But it's nice. I love those kinds of interactions. It's really nice to have that. And gosh, everyone has been so helpful to me.
That's wonderful. That's so cool. So tell us a little bit about the second half of the trip. You're about halfway. Are you coming from Cooper Pedy right now?
I will head back to Cooper Pedy.
Okay, I thought I was saying that wrong.
Cooper Pedy. It's a funny old place, Cooper Pedy. It's like a moonscape there. Very, very bizarre opal mining. But yeah, anyway, so my camels they're on a summer break at the moment, so they're stuffing their little faces right now, trying to get them nice and fat for next season. So I'll head back and I'll pick them up, which might entail sort of maybe 1 to 2 weeks of looking for them, because they're on a huge area. They're about 900 square kilometers of area to roam.
Oh my God.
So it's almost like I've let them go back into the wild. So I'm not sure how happy they're going to be when I have to wrangle them back in again, make them do more work. But yeah, so I'll go and pick them up probably around March, and then I will drive them back up to Cooper Pedy, and then we'll start from the same place that we finished off, and we'll walk from Cooper Pedy to Byron Bay on the east coast of Australia.
So how long are you thinking that's going to take you, and what kind of differences are you looking forward to with this second half of the trip?
I think it's probably going to take me maybe 5-6 months. That's just total estimate. I mean, it took me 6 and a bit months doing this first half. I think probably because we've gotten the groove of it a little bit more, we'll, probably be able to do some more Ks on this stretch. So yeah, probably 5-6 months. In some ways, this is almost, it's much less remote. Oh, having said that, actually, the first half of it is going to be quite remote. Leaving Cooper Pedy and basically Cooper Pedy across most of that will be quite remote. But once I hit the East Coast, then it becomes a lot more populated. And in some ways, that's really the hard part, is starting to take the camels into areas that are much more populated. I think by that point in time, will have to take some roads. I don't think we can get away with dirt tracks the whole way. And then it becomes mountainous too. There's what's called the Great Dividing Range, which runs all down the east coast of Australia. So I've got to get them across that, which I really need to go and have a bit of a recce of that area and try and find a way to get them through that, and then find a way to get them onto a very popular holiday destination beach. So it requires a bit more logistics, I think, this half of the trip. I already sort of, I don't know, I'm wishing that it was like the first half, in the sense that, although it's tough traveling through deserts and very remote, in some ways with camels it's almost easier, and I love that isolation. I love that remoteness. So yeah, it will be interesting. It'll be very, very different this second half.
So interesting. I'm so excited for you. And we're going to be, posting this before you get started, but it's something that folks are going to be able to follow along for 5 or 6 months, because you do post about it. You do share about it, and you post incredible pictures. So it's going to be something we're going to have to talk to you about, how the second half went once you complete it. And was it what you expected? Because with this, you can look at maps all day, but the reality of being out there is usually just so different,
Yeah, no, that'd be great to chat to you about the second half. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, where can we point folks to follow you? I'm going to plug everything, all your social, your website, but you can go ahead and.
Oh, okay. Probably what I'm most active, I guess, on Instagram when I'm not in the remote areas of the desert. I'm now at the moment, I'm currently posting some photos from really a couple of months back that obviously I wasn't able to post because there's no reception out there. So my Instagram is Sophie Matterson, one word. Matterson is Matterson. So Sophie Matterson Instagram. I'm on Facebook as Coast to Coast Camel Trek. And I do every now and then, I'm trying to do a bit more of it, do a blog on my website, which is www.sophiematterson.com. That's me.
Well, Sophie, that's appreciate you being on the Adventure Sports Podcast, and what an incredible adventure. I'm inspired to think outside the box about my next adventure. What could I do? I've got 2 dogs. They're pretty much useless. I got to find another animal or something to take.
They could carry some pack bags, right?
No, they are not. They are not going to do that. They're only good. The only thing they're good for is to love. So that's about all I can do with them.
Yeah, it does make it interesting traveling with animals, that's for sure.
Well, Sophie, have a great day, and I'll let you know when this comes out. And thanks again for being on.
Thanks, Mason. Thanks for having me. You have a great day too.
You too. All right. See you.
Bye.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to the show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to growing the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.